Have you ever had to go to a government office,
So we are really fighting the clock and every minute counts.
found yourself waiting in line thinking, man, they don't use resources very well at all? Every year in Taiwan, there's a festival where the Taiwanese people go to be forgiven of their sins. And in the city of Hsinchu, we see one of the biggest examples of it. This festival is very unique, and it doesn't go back hundreds of years. It actually goes back to maybe the 1850s. But it's a great example of their religious system and how they deal with the idea of sin or karma or the different imbalances of evil that people have done in their lives. If we go back in history, we find that there was this thing called a Kong, and it's a way to torture people who have done wrong. So if you're a prisoner, you'd have one put on your neck. And in the Qing dynasty, they could weigh up to 40 kilograms, which is about 100 pounds. And it would restrict your arms, you wouldn't be able to feed yourself, and they'd even be used for execution sometimes, or people would starve to death while wearing them. The Kong is very similar to that of the stock that you'd find in Europe. It's a way to publicly shame and humiliate someone for a crime that they've committed until they've atoned for that crime. Sometimes they would wear it for just a small period of time and they'd go back to normal life. Other times, there are vertical ones that they would put a stool underneath their feet and slowly remove the stool until they strangled to death. So they were used as a torture instrument. In the city of Hsinchu, you can see people who actually buy paper versions of these Kongs. So instead of giant wooden blocks, they buy these giant yellow triangles and they put them on their head, and they represent this punishment that used to be on people physically, but it's a spiritual version. The reason it's in the shape of a triangle is because they used to actually have 3 swords that you would see in Taiwan, and those swords would be in a pattern around people's neck. And over time, they slowly moved to representative versions of this. It's the same reason that they burn spirit money, not real money. They burn paper iPads, not real iPads. Although I guess if you're really rich, you could probably send your ancestors an iPad. So every year, during Ghost Month, people buy these and they go to the temple and they go before the city god. And in Hsinchu, they have a huge version of this where thousands of people participate. They pay money to actually get their Kong, or their punishment device, which is kind of interesting in that it actually fuels the temple. So the temple makes a lot of money off of this event, and it helps them to run throughout the year. So today you'll see people who wear the Kong and they're ceremonially suffering. And you'll actually see some people wear 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 of them, which maybe they feel really guilty, or they wanted to support the temple, or they felt they just really needed to suffer. But they put these on and it represents their punishment. But it doesn't represent their actual salvation or forgiveness. That's later on. The Kong itself is worn not because of massive sins, although it can be, but it can be something as small as you get into a fight with your spouse and you feel you've had bad luck, or you feel you've just been off for a while. Maybe there's a cosmic imbalance. Maybe you're being judged, so you go to get removed of that impurity or that sin. But some people will also do them for really, really big things. Maybe murder, but I doubt they'd probably tell you they murdered somebody. But the idea is that you'd pay and be able to atone for what you've done in the physical world through a spiritual exercise. The city god has a ton of assistants, and like we talked about last time with the wonderful ox head and horse face, he actually has one more. The name is Yin Yang Zi. Yin Yang Zi, Yin Yang Zi. So Yin Yang Zi, whatever you want to call him. In English, looks like the word Yin Yang Zi, which I think could be a rap name, but that's besides the point. If anybody wants to take that, they're free to. So Yin Yang Zi actually has the yin and the yang on his face, which is kind of weird. But he is white on one side and black on the other, and he's the assistant to the city god. The city god's in control of what happens with people's sort of afterlife experience. Do they go to hell? Do they go to heaven? How are they judged? And part of what he does is he listens to the people, and he listens to their petitions, which are called a shiwen. They are Taoist prayers and Taoist petitions to be forgiven of their sins. And he takes all of those, and at the end, they take these and they actually burn them. And the idea is that burning the Kong and burning the Shiwen will actually forgive the people of the sins. Now, it is the government, and it's a spiritual form, so there's a level of that auspiciousness. It has to be conducive to success. So maybe you bought 15 Kongs and you took a ton of petitions and you're hoping that it's gonna forgive you of your sins. But you don't have all the assurance that we would have that the spirit world is actually gonna say, you know what, that's good enough, yeah. Because maybe let's say you didn't work hard enough, or maybe let's say you're not worth being forgiven. So there's a level of fear and reverence that's in this process where people really are trying really hard to get that forgiveness and to get rid of that cosmic imbalance. This is similar to a legal system where you might petition to get out of a court case, but just because you've petitioned and said, hey, I'm innocent or I'm guilty, please give me this case, doesn't mean the government is going to listen to you that way.
I'm guilty as charged.
Compare and contrast time. Woo! So Christianity, the number one most important thing about it is Jesus Christ and the forgiveness of sins. That's the root of the religion. So the city God actually has a lot of commonality with Christianity, but one of the differences is that while the city God is the mediator between heaven and hell and able to make those big decisions on your behalf, Jesus Christ is the mediator between the God of the universe and humanity. So Christianity is different in that there's only one person you go to, Jesus Christ. There's no one else. Now there might be people who say, oh, you go to this person to pray on your behalf for your sentence, but we don't find that in the Bible. We find that the scriptures are very clear that there's only one mediator between God and man, Jesus Christ. And so Christianity has a very similar process. Christians know that they've done wrong. Maybe sometimes they feel that cosmic imbalance where we feel that guilt. And before you're a Christian is actually when this process is. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand about Christianity is you can't be born a Christian. So to become a Christian, there has to be a process. And that process is actually very similar to the City God Festival. To become a Christian, someone has to go before God himself. And remember, Christians believe God is, he's one, he's above everything, he's everywhere. He's right here, right now. He's not thousands of miles away where you can't find him. And you have to actually admit that you have sinned to God. Similar to the Taiwanese people bringing those Kongs to the city God. Unlike the city God, where you have that petition and you hope it's paid for, Jesus has actually already paid for all of the sin. And he's actually had an open invitation where he says, hey, are you a human being? Are you a vessel that can have the Spirit of God? If you come before me and you say, I am a sinner, I am sorry for my sin, will you let me accept that salvation, that payment for the sin that I've done? Then Jesus promises that he'll forgive you. He'll stand before his Father in heaven and he'll actually say, this is someone who is sinless and he's blameless because I paid for the bad stuff that he did. One of the primary differences is that Christianity, we don't have to wear the Kong. We don't have to wear the 100-pound weight that goes on our head. Jesus did that, and he did that through the crucifixion, which was one of the most painful ancient forms of torture. One of the things that you realize is that even if a human went through that, he still couldn't pay for sin. Like we've said before, even if we're dirty on the inside and we try to clean ourselves up, I don't know if you've ever tried to mop the floor with a dirty mop, it's not very productive.
Flora says, clean up the room.
Jesus paid for our sin, and he paid for it by going through his own torture and his own procession, and he paid for all of humanity. That's a pretty incredible thing. So one of the things that we really love about Christianity is that there's this, what we say, assurance. So Christianity is not really an auspicious religion where you're always worried about something being conducive to success. Christianity promises that if you have a relationship with Jesus and he offers that gift of salvation and you accept it, that's it. Your entire life, every sin you'll do, every sin you've done, sins you haven't even thought of are forgiven. But It's a relationship. To just say that you say a prayer and you're just like, God, please forgive me, it doesn't work that way. And there's more to it, but it's like that process that we see with the city God. You have to go before our mediator and get our sins forgiven. So if you've been watching with us so far and you've thought, man, this Christianity thing sounds really interesting, and you've had questions about it, we'd love to talk to you. We have resources in English and Chinese. We're missionaries. We're not gonna lie about it. We love the Bible. We believe Christianity. We'd love to have that discussion with you. So please keep following us if you wanna hear more about this and hear more about these subjects. And we're gonna be talking about different aspects of the Taiwanese faith and different aspects of Christianity in videos to come. We've got some B-roll for that. Cue Michael Jackson.